love. Welcome back to Confidently Cherished. And today I wanted to talk about what people get wrong when they talk about what it means to be a high value partner. So in the past few months, I have started looking at a lot of social media accounts that talk about hypergamy and soft life and women wanting to rest in their femininity. Women not wanting to do all the work and be the man in the relationship. And I understand these sentiments, especially as a Black woman. I understand this whole trope of the strong Black woman who handles everything and takes everything on her back. I know from personal experience what it's like to be in those types of relationships. I know what it's like to feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. And I know what it's like to just feel completely and totally burnt out. So I understand where all these content creators are coming from, right? And I also get how tempting it is to fall into wanting this fantasy, this idea of being with a man who completely and totally takes care of you. You don't have to do anything but sit there and be pretty. But there are a few things about this type of content that I really want to make straight for you. Here's the thing. When it comes to living a healthy, fulfilling, satisfying, loving life, that type of life is complex. It is actually the complexity that makes it so beautiful, that makes it so fulfilling. So when we try to narrow down relationships to just being simple transaction, he has the money, you bring the honey, those type of tropes, not only is it oversimplified, but it robs you of all the beautiful things that a relationship can be if you would allow yourself to use some critical thinking and put in a little bit more work. So here's some of the misconceptions about these hypergamy, soft life, content, videos, posts that you see on social media. And I did not number these, so I don't know how many we're doing today on this episode, but let's just go with the flow. If this starts running very long, I'll come back and make a part 2. But number 1, a high value man and a high earning man are not necessarily the same thing. So oftentimes when women are talking about leveling up and dating, they talk about it financially. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, right? If you want to build generational wealth, if you want to break some generational curses in your family around poverty and all of that, it makes sense to aspire to be with someone who is, in a better financial position than you are. That being said, I can think of personal experience. Years ago, I was dating this guy who earned a lot more money than I did. And he was very flashy with it, right? So he was, he drove a really nice car. He was always buying me really nice presents. He had all the name brand designer clothes, all of that good stuff. And, he and I dated for a little while, and it was just one of those situations where it wasn't a match, right? He didn't do anything terrible. I didn't do anything terrible. We just kind of grew apart. But months after we broke up, he called me and he asked if he could spend the night at my place for a few nights. And, in general, I thought that was crazy because who calls up their ex and asks for something like that? But beyond that, when we dated, he had a really nice place of his own. So, not that I was living in the slums or anything. Like, my apartment was nice, but it wasn't anything comparable to his. So I asked him what was going on, and it turns out that he had been evicted. All of his spending had gotten the best of him, and I'm trying to be very clear that I don't reveal who this person is. But he was an influencer before people started using that word all the time, right? So he was on a certain social media platform, and he was making really good money off of that, before people really thought about that as being a career. He had brand deals and he sold his own stuff. Like I said, I'm trying to be very vague about who this person is. Especially because he is now rebuilding himself, and he is doing very well now on another social media platform. So, but anyways, he had all these deals coming in, and he was doing very well. And you know how social media is. He was the flavor of the week, and a new week came. Other creators started to come in, and all of a sudden, when he was getting all of this money, he was spending it as he got it. So when the deal started to dry up, he was left with nothing. And I tell you the story, not to rag on him or anything, because one, he didn't know better. He was never raised to learn like financial responsibility. And also, again, he's doing very well now, and back on social media on a different platform. But I tell you the story because I see so many women chasing, all the trappings of wealth. They go out here and they chase after men who are flashy and who are, showing off how much money they have. One, rich screams, wealth whispers. People, men or women, who are truly wealthy don't feel the need to flash their wealth all the time. So someone who does go around and flash, it's usually a red flag right there that they don't manage money very well. And to that point, someone can be a high earning man and not be capable of taking care of you. He's not high value because maybe he's stingy and greedy. So he's just not going to spend money on you unless it also serves him in the purpose. It also serves him in the process. Maybe he makes a lot of money, but again, he spends it as soon as he gets it. So this is not going to be someone that you can build generational wealth with if he doesn't have a savings account. If he never builds his wealth, he just goes out and spends. This could be someone who is high earning, but is in a career in a field where there is a lot of risk. I think pro athletes, how many pro athletes do you know are making millions during their career, and then they retire and you find out that like 5-10 years later, they're broke. So it's really important that we don't confuse high earning and high value. A high value man, when it comes to finances, so let's just start there since that's where we are. When it comes to finances, a high value man is financially stable. So, all of these arguments about not expecting a man to pay on a date. Well, like, if he can't afford to take you to Olive Garden, then how do you expect him to be able to afford to raise a family? Like, seriously. If he can't afford to, treat you to a nice present on your birthday or Christmas. And I'm not, nice is relative. I'm not saying it has to be an Hermes bag, but if you don't ever get anything because he doesn't have the money to give you gifts, how do you expect him to buy things for his children? So a high value man, when it comes to finances, is a man who is financially stable and who can manage well the money that he has, whatever amount of money that can be. I feel like I should start telling you guys more stories about my past relationships, but I have dated, and by dated I mean I've had relationships and situationships with men who have, men who are millionaires down to men who made barely above minimum wage. And I can tell you, in all those categories, there are men who manage their money well and men who don't. There are men that I dated in the past who made less money than I made, but were more financially sound than I was because they were just better at managing money. They didn't make as much as I did, but the money they made, they invested well. So they had more savings built up than I did. They had more in investments than I did. They had less debt than I did. So again, from that financial standpoint, when we are talking about someone who is high earning, we are talking about, or when we are talking about someone who is high value, we're not just talking about someone who is high earning. We also mean that this man manages what he has well, and that he is stable, and that he has long-term goals as well that allow him to keep his priorities in check so that he doesn't get into habits like overspending. So, point number 2, a high value man can do more for you than just finances. Now that we've gotten this money talk out of the way, it's really important that we remember that relationships are not just about money. Don't get me wrong. Money is important. There's a line from a Kanye West song, and I really wish I could remember off the top of my head what song that is right now. But he says, having money is not everything, not having it is. So it's very true that if you are in a relationship, particularly a marriage, and the two of you have money problems, it makes it that much harder for that relationship to survive. Money is one of the top reasons for divorce in the US. So yes, having that baseline of stability is important. And that's going to be an individual thing because we all grew up with different levels of finances, different levels of comfort, right? So it's going to be up to you to take the time to decide what it is that you need to be stable. Like, is owning a home important to you? Is living in a city versus living in a country important to you? Would you expect your kids to go to private school, or is public school okay with you? Things like that. So you have to decide what it is that you need to feel comfortable, and what it means to have a partner who aligns with that. Like, would you expect a partner to pay all of the bills or the majority of the bills? Are you okay with 50-50? Are you okay with being the breadwinner and you want a partner who, he's the one who handles the things at home, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, those types of things. But once you figure the financial stability part out, remember that a high value man is someone who also takes care of you, provides for you mentally and emotionally as well. Most of my clients are in their late 20s to early 30s. Let's go with 25 to 35. But I work with women as well who are older than that. I have clients who are dating and they are in their 50s and 60s. And I say this because particularly women who are dating in that age group, the priority is different, especially when it comes to money. So this is also true in a few of my younger clients. I have female clients who are in their 20s and who make 6 and 7 figures, and they have no concern whatsoever about how much money their future husband makes, right? They're like, they have it. If he has money too, great. If not, they expect to handle that. But the reason why I bring this up is because, especially if you feel like you have finances handled, and I bring up my older female clients because, in their cases, like, they're widowers. So they were left a fair amount of money from, their late husbands, or they're divorced and they received a fair amount of money in a divorce settlement, or, they're just end of career and they did very well for themselves and now they're retired and they are personally set. In these cases, it becomes even more important to really think about the emotional providing and the spiritual providing, the physical providing as well. And I'm not saying that this isn't also important when money is also a concern, but because we live in a society that traditionally thinks in terms of man is the financial provider and woman is the caretaker, I feel we don't spend as much time talking about these other aspects. One of the things that was really important to me with my husband is before he and I met, I'd undergone a quarter life crisis, right? And this quarter life crisis sent me on this major spiral that had me questioning everything in my life. And during the process of healing from all of this, so, I went to therapy. I reevaluated a lot of the relationships in my life, the type of men I was dating, the friends that I had, relationships with family members, all of that. But during that time, I also did a lot of questioning about my faith. And you've probably heard me say this before. I am a preacher's kid, raised in a Pentecostal church, my entire upbringing. I also studied religion in college. In addition to journalism, I also studied religious studies, psychology as well. And, faith has always been a very important part of my life, but I went through a season where I felt very disconnected from God, right? And one of the things that really drew me closer to my husband is that when he and I met, he was also questioning his faith. And our conversations about it helped me, like just the way he would ask me questions, the way we would talk about things, really helped me explore what it was that I wanted in my relationship with God. It really helped me think more clearly, think more productively about how I wanted to build my spirituality and build my faith. And as I was doing these things, he was also very encouraging with, yeah, sure, you want to try out this new church? Let's go. Like, I know you've been going to this church, but you don't feel like maybe this church has what you need. Let's go explore this new place. Or, he would see something, like someone would mention a book to him and he would mention it to me, even even if he didn't actually read that book himself, the fact that he would like take the time to note it. He would he was just very encouraging of not judging. That was one of the things that I dealt with as well, going through this process of questioning and not feeling like I could talk to some of my childhood friends about it, because we were all raised the same way, right? And it almost seemed blasphemous to go to them and say, hey, I'm questioning how I feel about this and what we were taught about that. So having that spiritual support was very important to me. Also having the emotional support, being with someone who, when I started my business, there were so many people who were discouraging. And I'm not saying this to knock those people, because I understand that that discouragement came from a place of love, right? People love you. They want to keep you safe. They don't want to see you fail. They don't want to see you screw up. So they try to keep you in a place that's comfortable. And I truly believe that they do it with the best of intentions. I also had people who were very Pollyanna too when I went into business. You had people who were like, oh yeah, like just go do it. Go be great. You're going to make $1 million in like 10 minutes. And I appreciate that support as well, but some realism is needed. I was just saying to a friend today earlier that, I love my business. I don't regret it. If I had to go back and do it again, I would, but it took me 2 years to make a profit. I kind of wish I'd been prepared for that it was going to take me 2 years to make a profit. But the fact is that I was able to succeed despite the naysayers. And, I pushed through despite not getting the immediate results that some people tried to gas me up into thinking I would get. So I say that because my husband was very good about both encouraging, telling me that I had a passion for this mission of mine to help other women break generational curses in their relationships. Reminding me of my own story and how my own story would be able to eventually help many other women. Telling me that I was smart and telling me that I was capable. But at the same time, he was also good about asking questions in a gentle way, in a non-judgmental way, and providing in that way, so that when I was going through this process of, getting my LLC, getting certified as a life coach, coaching clients for the first time, all of that, that when people ask me questions, a lot of times I was able to stay calm and not get offended when someone was being discouraging, because I had talked about this thing with my husband. We had already talked it through. I was able to keep my head on straight and keep focus and not veer again to either side, to the being overly optimistic, but also not being overly pessimistic either, because he was such a solid rock for me, such a foundation for me. So having someone who provides for you is not just a matter of, this person needs to pay a bill. Like, masculine energy is about providing. So yes, that's important. But beyond that, it's also about having someone that you can trust, having someone that you can confide in, having someone who is not going to put your business out there, having someone who holds your opinions, the things that you say, your wants, your desires, your needs in high regard, and is careful about how they handle your emotions. So, where are we? We're on number 3. Number 1 was that high earning does not necessarily equal high value. And number 2 was that providing is more than just money. Number 3 is this whole idea of running towards a soft life to avoid being a strong woman. I said it at the beginning of this episode. I will say it again. That strong black woman trope sucks. It does black women a lot more harm than it does good. It puts us in positions of people pleasing, being burnt out, and being stressed to the point that it causes health problems. And I'm not saying that women of other races don't deal with, having to be a strong woman or anything, but I'm speaking from my personal lived experience. So, again, I understand this temptation to, I've been working in corporate for all these years. I'm just over it. And I don't want to be strong anymore. I want someone to take care of me. I have 2 things to say to that. 1, femininity is strong. Feminine energy is simply strong in a different way from masculine energy. So as a woman, you have both feminine and masculine energy. There's a balance within yourself. When you get in a relationship, there's a balance within the relationship, right? But while masculine energy is doing, feminine energy is being. So your feminine strength is in authenticity. It is in being able to stay present in the moment. It's in creativity. It's in your flow. So when we say things like, I don't want to be strong anymore, I believe what most women are trying to say is that they don't want to dominate in their masculine energy. They want to spend more time in their feminine. However, let's not conflate feminine as weak. Again, as strong in a different way. And you should embrace that type of strength. But here's the other thing. It's one thing to want to live a so-called softer life. It's another thing to want to be lazy. The fact is, if you are with a man who is truly a high value man and who truly is working on building a legacy and creating generational wealth and all of that, he's not going to want a woman who's lazy. Like, just point blank, period. He's going to expect you to do work. Now, that work could look much different than his work. You could be very traditional in the sense that he goes to a job and, he earns money from the job that he has, or he owns his own business, and your work is, hosting parties at your home. Your work could be cooking and cleaning. Your work could be managing a staff that cooks and cleans for you. Your work could be with your children if you and this man choose to have children. But it's still work. It may be a different kind of work. It may be a kind of work that you feel naturally more aligned to, so that it's easier. It doesn't necessarily feel like work, but make no mistake, it's still work. Also, again, a healthy person has a balance within themselves of masculine energy and feminine energy. So when you say things like you want to just live a soft life and, not be so masculine anymore, I encourage every woman that I work with to embrace her femininity more. Because this is usually the side that we have to work on. I believe that all life coaches tend to attract people who are like them. They're a coach's clients are usually the coach themselves before they reach this level. So, there's always levels of development. And let's say in relationships, I may have reached a level 8. My clients have the same problems that I used to have 6-7 years ago. And they are currently at, level 2-3. So when it comes to developing these relationships and finding that masculine and feminine balance, as someone who used to operate heavily in her masculine, I tend to attract clients who also heavily operate in their masculine as well. So finding that balance is very important. Like, not just from a wanting to make yourself more attractive to a certain type of man, but not having that balance leads to stress, it leads to burnout, and those lead to things like chronic illness, high blood pressure, just all kinds of brain fog, headaches, all kinds of illnesses that we want to avoid. We want to be healthy, right? So I understand where a lot of women are coming from. At the same time, you should never lose the masculine side of you. Bring it into balance, yes, but lose it, no. Because if you've listened to my previous episodes on what is feminine energy and what is masculine energy, and if you have not listened to those, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to them now. But if you listen to those episodes, then you will know that masculine energy is a container for the feminine. So me being in business, right? Me being a coach, there are so many things that I do that are a creative outlet for me. If I write an email, that is me being creative. If I post on social media, that is me being creative. When I do this podcast, this is a creative outlet for me. It's a way for me to get out my message to a larger group of women than just my clients. And when I do these things, all the creativity in the world means nothing if I don't have the masculine energy to actually upload my podcast or actually publish that blog post, actually post that thing on social media, or, send a note to my assistant and have her do those things. But either way, my creativity needs a container. It needs some way to actually get out there and reach beyond just me. It's also practical. I've said it again in previous episodes. God bless the girl who has her own. So, yes, I thoroughly enjoy when my husband takes care of me in any of the ways that he takes care of me. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, any of those things. At the same time, I also know that something could happen to my husband and he could no longer be able to do those things. Something could happen where I have to take care of myself. And because of that, although I am constantly working on my balance between feminine and masculine energy, although I'm constantly doing the work to embrace my feminine energy more, I know better than to lose my masculine container, because what if something happens and I have to pick up that masculine for a little while and, I have to be the one to provide. And this doesn't have to be a permanent thing. What if my husband were sick for, I don't know, a few weeks, went into the hospital or something? And eventually he was okay and he was able to resume work. But while he was out of work, I would need to take over the things that he handles, right? So knowing that I can do those things gives me so much more peace of mind in our relationship, because it may never happen, right? It may never, ever happen. Well, I was going to say it may never, ever happen again, because at the start of the pandemic, it actually did happen. My husband was out of work for a little while, and I had to take over that role of like being the breadwinner for a little bit until he was able to find a job again. So, hopefully that doesn't happen again. But if it did, one, we've been through it. I know we can survive it. But again, I also know that I personally can handle that. One, it makes me more confident. It makes me a better wife, because I appreciate his provision. I'm not dependent on it. I can have that appreciation and gratitude. But it also allows me to see things from that perspective. Oftentimes, or not oftentimes, but I know a few relationships in which a woman is very taken care of and she starts to take that for granted. So, when you are able to balance your energies, you're able to step into that masculine when need be, then you understand what your partner is going through. If you have that relationship set up where he's the more masculine energy, you operate more in your feminine energy, you understand his side and his perspective, and it allows you to, it really improves the communication. It really improves the flow in the relationship. So actually, this episode has gone for almost 40 minutes, and I have really tried to keep these episodes at a length where they can be a car ride for you when you're running errands. So I am going to end this here. I'm going to repeat the 3 things that I said that people get wrong about soft life and hypergamy. One is that high earning and high value are not necessarily the same. 2 is that provision and having someone provide for you is more than just financial. And 3 is this idea that soft life is not an excuse to be lazy. Like, embracing your feminine energy, you can still be a hard worker. You can still have your masculine energy as long as you keep it in balance. And you can still work in your feminine strength, because feminine energy is strength, just in a different way from masculine. So we're going to end it with those 3 for today. And stay tuned. Next week, we will do a part 2. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Hey there. So you made it all the way to the end of the episode, which means I have 2 things to say. 1, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And 2, you like me. You really like me. So I would appreciate it if you would show that like by subscribing to this podcast, so that more people can hear about it and enjoy it as much as you do. And if you want to know more about any of the links that I mentioned on this episode, or any guests that I've had, be sure to go to KeshiaRice.com/links. That's KeshiaRice.com/links. I can't wait to talk to you again in the next episode. So see you then.